Hi there. Welcome to part 2 called Locking in Your Calls. I assume you've already gotten through part 1 if you're here now. Part 1 was doing the ground school prior to this, so this is going to be assuming that you know some of those things. So we're going to start off with the calls that we would make at our home airport, KGEU, known as Glendale Municipal Airport. And this is a Class Delta airport. Now you know from your ground school that means that this is a towered airport. So what we have to do every time we make a call is we want to tell them who we are, what we want, and what information we have, if any. So as we've listened to the weather, we're ready to taxi now. Our first call will sound something like this. Glendale ground, Lightsport 160 Echo Alpha with information Alpha, requesting a departure to the north. Now the Glendale controller will come back and say Lightsport 160 Echo Alpha, taxi via Alpha for runway 1. Now you just have to repeat that back and then you will start to make your taxi. Once you've gotten down to the runway, you've done your run up, your taxi is complete, your next call will be your hold short call. So this call again will just be who you are and what you want, but this one will be to the tower, Glendale Tower. Lightsport 160 Echo Alpha is holding short of runway 1, ready for departure. The Glendale Tower will come back and they'll tell you to either hold short at runway 1 or they will clear you for takeoff, at which point you can then go and take off. So your calls from here are a little bit different. So because we are at a towered airport, we don't really have to make any calls other than just repeating what they tell us. So in order for us to fly the pattern, what we would do is we would depart runway 1. We're going to fly a right-hand pattern because that's what the pattern is at Glendale. And the tower controller might tell us to turn crosswind. And if they do, they'll let us know ahead of time that we will be turning crosswind, or they're going to call our crosswind is how they'll say that. And then we will turn. And this is crosswind right here, as you know from your ground. And then we're on downwind. Downwind, he could do a couple of things. He might tell us to let him know when we're at midfield if they're not too busy, or he might tell us he's going to call our base. And what that means is when he tells us, I'll call your base, and of course you have to repeat that back, you will fly all the way down downwind until he tells you you can turn base. You do not start like you normally would a beamed 1,000 footers. Then, at some point on the downwind, more than likely, he will also tell you that you are cleared to land for the given runway. In this case, runway 1. So it would be Lightsport 160 Echo Alpha, cleared to land, runway 1. Or in the case of us doing, say, touch and goes, it might be 160 Echo Alpha, cleared for the option, runway 1. Now, there's a few other calls we do need to be aware of as we are at a towered airport. One of the calls they'll make as we depart the airport is they're going to tell us that we are able to change our frequency. So they will say 160 Echo Alpha frequency change approved. You will just read that back. Frequency change approved, 160 Echo Alpha. I like to put the tail number at the end of what I'm saying, because if I put it at the beginning of what I'm saying, I might forget what I'm actually needing to repeat. Now, the final call with a towered airport is going to be when you are actually returning to the airspace. So as you can see right here, when you're 10 miles out, after you've gotten the weather, I want you to make the call again, who you are, what you want, and what information you have. So this time, maybe returning to the airport, maybe the weather information has changed. So this time it's Glendale Tower, Lightsport 160 Echo Alpha, with information Bravo, we'd like to request a full stop. And so what I'm asking them for is I'm asking them to land and taxi off the runway and taxi back to the ramp. If I wanted touch and goes, I would request touch and goes. So I would just say the variant would be Lightsport 160 Echo Alpha is 10 miles to the east with information Bravo requesting touch and goes. And I did forget to say the information on the first, or the location of us on the first one, because you always want to say also where you're at. You can also do that when you're making your taxiing calls if you're at bigger airports. So always saying who you are, where you are, and what you want is going to help you every time when you're making your call outs. So that is everything for the towered airport. Now let's go on to untowered airports.